I'm Grace, 28 years old. At 16, my parents made me hand over nearly half my paycheck to support the family, while my brother Marcus chased one expensive art dream after another. 12 years later, after buying my first home, they sued me, demanding I take out a loan against it to fund his fourth attempt at college. Standing in that courtroom, I realized this was never about family. It was about control. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. And truly, thank you for being here. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a family of 4. My dad, Robert, worked as an HVAC repair technician, and my mom, Linda, was a part-time bookkeeper at a small dental practice. Then there was Marcus, 2 years older than me, and from day one, he was treated like the family's golden ticket to success. From as far back as I can remember, Marcus was the center of everything. He played guitar, painted, wrote poetry, and my parents were convinced he was going to be the next big artist. Marcus has natural talent, they'd say constantly. He's going to be somebody special someday. And me? I was the practical one, the responsible one, the reliable daughter. Those words sound positive, but they were really just a polite way of saying I was ordinary, unremarkable, not worth investing in. When I was 14, our family hit some financial trouble. Dad hurt his back and had to take 6 months off work. Instead of cutting Marcus's expenses, guitar lessons at $150 a month, art supplies, expensive workshops, they started looking for ways to save money elsewhere. That elsewhere was me. Grace, you're old enough to understand responsibility, Dad said when I turned 15. You need to start contributing to this family. So I got my first job at Morning Brew coffee shop after school. The owner, Mrs. Dorothy Williams, was a kind widow who taught me how to make coffee, manage shifts, and most importantly, how to save money. When I brought home my first paycheck, $280 for 2 weeks of work, my parents already had a plan. From now on, you'll contribute 40% of your earnings to the household, Dad announced. That's for rent, food, and utilities. I was stunned. But I'm only 16. I want to save for college, Mom actually laughed. Grace, you need to be more realistic. With your grades, you should focus on learning a practical trade. Marcus is the one who needs college to develop his talents. My grades at the time were a 3.2 GPA, not outstanding, but decent. But compared to Marcus, who regularly skipped school to find inspiration and had a 2.8 GPA, I couldn't understand how I was considered the lesser investment. From 16 on, my life became a machine. School from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., work from 3:30 to 10 p.m., homework until midnight. Weekends meant double shifts to earn extra money. Meanwhile, Marcus was free to explore his creativity. He could sleep until noon, spend all day painting or playing guitar, or brainstorm about art projects. Every expense, from an $800 guitar to expensive art classes, was covered by my parents for his future. The most painful part? Whenever I bought something for myself, a $20 shirt or a book, Mom would comment, Grace, you need to learn better money management. Mrs. Dorothy noticed my exhaustion. Honey, you're working more than my adult employees, she said one afternoon when she found me slumped over the counter. Why don't you rest? When I explained the situation, Mrs. Dorothy shook her head. Families should support your dreams, not turn you into an ATM. She started paying me extra under the table, urging me to save it for college. Don't tell anyone, she whispered. This is for your future. When I entered my senior year of high school, the family's financial pressure doubled. Marcus decided to pursue photography and needed a professional camera setup costing $2,500. Grace, the family needs you to step up more, Dad announced at dinner. Marcus has an opportunity to study with a famous photographer. This could be his career breakthrough. I looked at Marcus, then 19, lounging in his chair, playing games on his phone while I'd just gotten home from an 8-hour shift. I'm already contributing 40% of my salary, I said carefully. I can't give more. You're being selfish, Mom said. Marcus needs support to develop his talent. You just need to work a little harder. Work harder? I couldn't believe it. I'm already working 50 hours a week. Lots of young people work hard to support their families, Dad said. That's what responsibility means. I looked at Marcus, hoping he'd defend me, but he just shrugged. Grace has always been good at making money. Why not help the family? That's when it hit me. To them, I wasn't a daughter, sister, or family member. I was a revenue stream. I picked up a second weekend job at Sweet Dreams Bakery. The owner, Mr. George Martinez, noticed my exhaustion immediately. "Kid, you're working more than my full-time employees," he said. "Why aren't you focusing on school?" When I told him about my situation, Mr. George got angry. "This isn't how you raise children. Parents should sacrifice for kids, not the other way around." He started paying me extra and encouraged me to save for college. "You've got business talent. Don't let them kill your dreams." By the end of senior year, with help from Mrs. Dorothy and Mr. George, I'd saved $12,000 and raised my GPA to 3.6. I got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship. My family's reaction, disappointment. "So you're going to abandon the family to go to school?" Mom asked. "We'll lose your income." "Marcus will need money for college too," Dad added. "You have a responsibility to support your brother." "Marcus is 19, I pointed out. "He can support himself." "Marcus has special talents," Mom repeated the familiar refrain. "He needs time to develop them. He can't do ordinary jobs like you." That was the first time I got truly angry. "So my work is ordinary and doesn't matter." "Grace, don't get an attitude," Dad warned. "Family comes first. If you go to college, you still need to send money home." I looked at them, the people who should have been proud of my achievements, who should have encouraged my dreams, and realized a painful truth. They had never seen me as a daughter who deserved love and support. I was just funding for Marcus's genius project. That night, I called Mrs. Dorothy and cried. "I don't know what to do." "Honey," she said gently, "sometimes you have to choose between the family that raised you and the family you create for yourself. Don't let them steal your future." I moved to Columbus for State University with $500 cash, 2 suitcases of clothes, and iron determination. My parents refused to drive me, saying, "If you want to abandon family for school, you can handle it yourself." My first roommate, Ashley, came from a wealthy family in Cincinnati suburbs. She cried when her parents left after helping set up our room, saying she'd miss them. I sat quietly on my second-hand bed with cheap sheets, having no one to miss. The financial reality of college hit harder than I'd expected. Even with a 60% scholarship, I still needed $18,000 per year for tuition, room, board, and books. I found work at Rosie's Diner, a 24-hour restaurant near campus. My schedule? Classes 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Work 4 p.m. to midnight, studying until 3 a.m. Weekends meant double shifts. My main food was ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. Meanwhile, my family kept calling for money. "Marcus needs a new laptop for photo editing," Dad called one night while I was cramming for midterms. $3,000. "Can you send it?" "Dad, I'm eating ramen every day to pay tuition," I replied, exhausted. "You're always selfish," Mom chimed in. "Marcus has an exhibition coming up. He needs good equipment." "What exhibition?" I asked. "At the local community center. This could be a big opportunity for his photography career." I Googled it later and found the exhibition. A small local art show with 15 participants, no prizes, and no career opportunities. But my family had turned it into Marcus's big break. When I refused to send money, they cut contact for 3 months. In my sophomore year, I added a teaching assistant job for business math. Professor Johnson, a strict but fair woman in her 50s, noticed my work ethic. "Grace, have you ever thought about graduate school?" she asked, after reading my essay on financial planning. "I can't afford it, Professor," I said honestly. "You have a natural talent for finance and rare work ethic. Don't let circumstances limit your potential." She connected me with an internship program at Midwest Financial Group. It was a turning point, the first time I worked in a professional environment where I was valued for my abilities, not my role in family dynamics. My supervisor, Mr. David Chen, was impressed with my dedication. "Grace, you have an entrepreneur's mindset. Have you ever thought about starting your own business?" That summer, the internship paid me $4,000, more money than I'd ever had at once. For the first time, I could eat properly and buy new textbooks instead of used ones. But then my family reappeared. "Grace, we need to talk," Dad called. "Marcus got accepted to the Art Institute of Chicago. Tuition is $45,000 a year." I nearly dropped the phone. $45,000. "This is the opportunity of a lifetime," Mom said. Marcus will study with top artists. You need to help support your brother. I'm struggling to pay my own tuition, I said. I can't. You have a good job now, Dad interrupted. You can take out loans to help Marcus. Take out loans? I couldn't believe it. You want me to go into debt to pay for Marcus? Family sacrifices for each other, Mom said. You're his sister. You have a responsibility. Marcus is older than me, I shouted, the first time I'd ever raised my voice to my parents. Don't take that tone with us, Dad warned. Marcus has special talent. Investing in his education will benefit the whole family. Benefit how? I asked. Marcus has never made a penny from his talent. Long silence. Then Mom said coldly, We're disappointed in you, Grace. You've changed. You've become selfish and cold-hearted. They hung up. That was the last time I heard from them for 3 years. Ashley witnessed the entire phone call. Grace, that's not family, that's financial abuse. It was the first time anyone had named what I was experiencing. Financial abuse, emotional manipulation, parentification. Your family treats you like an ATM, not like a daughter, Ashley continued. That's not normal. That semester, I started therapy with the school counselor. Dr. Rebecca Martinez helped me understand that I wasn't at fault, that my parents had failed to protect and nurture me. Grace, you were forced to become an adult from a very young age, she said. You were robbed of your childhood and your right to dream. That's not acceptable. I graduated college with a 3.8 GPA, magna cum laude, and immediately got offered a full-time position at Midwest Financial Group with a starting salary of $52,000. For the first time in my life, I had steady income that I didn't have to share with anyone. My first decision, renting a studio apartment instead of sharing. After years of never having private space, having a place that belonged only to me felt like luxury. I created a detailed 5-year financial plan. Years 1-2 would focus on paying off student loans and building an emergency fund. Years 3-4 would be saving for a house down payment. Year 5 would be buying a house and starting to build wealth. Colleagues often invited me to happy hours or weekend trips, but I declined most invitations. Every $50 spent on dinner out meant delaying my goals by another week. Ashley, now working at a marketing firm in Cincinnati, understood my mindset. Grace, you deserve to enjoy life too, she said during a visit. You've sacrificed enough. Enjoyment will come after I have security, I replied. I need to know I can survive on my own. My work performance was excellent. Within 18 months, I got promoted to senior financial analyst with a salary increase to $68,000. Instead of upgrading my lifestyle, I maintained my frugal habits and poured the additional income into savings. Mr. Chen, now my mentor, was impressed with my discipline. Grace, you have the financial maturity of someone twice your age. You're going to go far in this career. By my 3rd year, I'd paid off all $38,000 of my student loans and saved a $15,000 emergency fund. The accomplishment was monumental, but I had no one to celebrate with. I called Mrs. Dorothy, now 70, and retired. Sweetheart, I'm so proud of you, she cried. You've proven you can do anything. Years 4 and 5 focused on the house down payment. I researched neighborhoods, attended first-time buyer seminars, and learned about mortgages. My real estate agent, Mrs. Patricia Williams, was amazed by my preparation. Most clients your age come with minimal savings and unrealistic expectations, she said. You've prepared like a professional investor. Finally, we found the perfect house, a 1950s ranch home with 3 bedrooms in Westerville, a safe Ohio suburb, $295,000 in a good neighborhood with excellent schools. Even though I didn't have children, I wanted a home with good resale value. The day I signed the mortgage papers, my hands were shaking. The loan officer commented on my unusual financial stability for someone my age. Most people your age have multiple credit card debts and minimal savings, he said. You have a 780 credit score and a 20% down payment. Very impressive. At the key ceremony, I stood alone in my empty living room and cried. Not tears of sadness, but overwhelming relief and pride. This house represented 12 years of sacrifice, discipline, and determination. Ashley drove down from Cincinnati with champagne and pizza. To Grace, she toasted, who proved that family support isn't necessary to achieve your dreams. I furnished the house slowly, each piece carefully chosen and saved for. I didn't rush to fill the spaces, but enjoyed the process of creating a space that was truly mine. 6 months after moving in, I decided to invite my family to visit. Despite the hurt and resentment, part of me still wanted to share this achievement with them. Maybe, I thought naively, seeing my success would make them proud and lead to a healthier relationship. I was completely wrong. The phone call with my parents after 3 years of no contact was awkward and tense. "Grace," Dad answered, his voice cautious. "Surprised to hear from you." "Hi, Dad," I said nervously. "I wanted to invite you, Mom, and Marcus to visit my new house." Silence. Then Mom spoke in the background. "New house? You bought a house?" "Yes, I bought it 6 months ago. I'd like the family to see it." "Well," Dad cleared his throat, "we'll come this Saturday." Saturday morning, I was as nervous as a teenager meeting a boyfriend's parents for the first time. I cleaned the house spotless, bought groceries to prepare lunch, and even bought fresh flowers from the farmer's market. When their car pulled into my driveway, my heart was pounding. I hadn't seen them in 3 years. They stepped out, my parents looking older and more weathered. And Marcus. Marcus looked exactly the same. Ripped jeans, band t-shirt, messy hair, carrying a skateboard despite being 26 years old. "Welcome to my home," I said, opening the door wide. Dad scanned the exterior critically. "What's this neighborhood like for safety?" "Very safe," I replied. "Low crime rate, good schools nearby." Marcus walked past me without greeting, immediately pulling out his phone and ignoring his surroundings. Mom entered and immediately started judging. Smaller than I expected," she commented, touching furniture with faint disdain. "And this furniture, from thrift stores?" "Some pieces," I admitted. "I like mixing vintage with modern." The house tour took 10 minutes. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, updated kitchen, small backyard with a garden I'd started. I was proud of every corner, every improvement I'd made. "Kitchen appliances are pretty old," Mom observed, "and the carpet in the master bedroom needs replacing." "I'll update things gradually," I said, trying to stay positive. Lunch preparation was tense. I made chicken parmesan, salad, and homemade bread, dishes I remembered them enjoying. Marcus spent the entire time on his phone, occasionally laughing at videos with the sound on. "Marcus, could you turn the sound down?" I asked politely. "Whatever," he mumbled, without looking up. During lunch, conversation was stilted. They asked about my job, but their responses were lukewarm. When I mentioned my recent promotion to financial manager with an $85,000 salary, there were no congratulations. Instead, Mom said, "That's good money, you must have plenty saved up." Red flag. I changed the subject quickly. "What's Marcus doing these days?" I asked. "Marcus is exploring different artistic mediums," Dad answered proudly. "He just finished an intensive workshop in digital art." "What workshop?" I was curious. "Online course," Marcus finally spoke without looking up from his phone. 4 weeks, very intensive. "I researched it and it cost $3,000, Mom added with a tone like it was a major investment. I nodded politely, not mentioning that $3,000 for a 4-week online course seemed excessive, especially when Marcus had never monetized any artistic skills. After lunch, the real purpose of their visit revealed itself. "Grace," Dad cleared his throat, "we need to discuss something important with you." My heart sank. I knew it. They hadn't come to celebrate my success or reconnect. They needed something. "Marcus has been accepted to a prestigious program," Mom announced with forced pride. "California Institute of Arts, Masters in Digital Media Design." "That's," I paused, "a great achievement." "Tuition is $60,000 per year," Dad continued, "plus living expenses in California. Total cost around $180,000 for 2 years. The silence hung heavy. I waited for them to explain their funding plan, scholarships, or Marcus's contribution. Instead, they stared at me expectantly. "Okay," I said slowly. "Congratulations to Marcus. That's expensive." "We thought," Mom began carefully, "given your new house and good salary, you might want to invest in your brother's future." "Invest?" I repeated. "Family investment," Dad clarified. "Marcus will become a successful artist. This degree will open doors. Eventually, he'll pay everyone back." I looked at Marcus, still on his phone, showing no interest in the conversation about his future. "Marcus," I addressed him directly, "what's your plan after graduation? Career goals?" He shrugged without looking up. I'll figure it out. Create art, maybe start a YouTube channel, sell designs online. No concrete plan, no business strategy, no understanding of market realities. Just vague hopes, and I'll figure it out. How much can you help? Mom asked bluntly. I struggled for words. I can't afford to pay for someone's graduate school. I just bought a house, I have mortgage payments, and… You have a good job and stable income, Dad interrupted. You could take an equity loan on this house. My blood ran cold. Equity loan? Use the house as collateral, Mom explained, like it was an obvious solution. Banks give loans easily when you have property. You pay monthly, and eventually Marcus's success will help pay it back. Eventually, I asked. Based on what guarantee? Based on family obligation, Dad said firmly. You've been selfish long enough. Time to support your brother like family should. Selfish? The anger finally bubbled up. I've worked since I was 16, paid for my own college, bought my own house. How is that selfish? You abandoned this family when we needed you most, Mom accused. Now you have the means to help, but you refuse. I didn't abandon anyone, I defended myself. You cut contact with me when I couldn't send money. Because you chose yourself over family, Dad declared. Real family members sacrifice for each other. Marcus finally looked up from his phone. Yeah, Grace, I've always helped you. Helped me? I stared at him. When? How? Like, moral support and stuff, he mumbled, immediately returning to his phone. The conversation spiraled into accusations. They called me ungrateful, selfish, cold-hearted. They claimed I owed the family for raising me. They said good daughters support their brother's dreams. If you refuse to help voluntarily, Dad stood up abruptly. There are other ways to ensure family responsibilities are met. What does that mean? I asked. It means we know what you're worth, Mom said ominously. This house represents resources that should benefit the whole family, not just you. They left without saying goodbye. I stood in my empty living room, shaking with anger and hurt. I'd invited them to share my achievement, to maybe rebuild our relationship. Instead, they saw my success as their entitlement. That night, Ashley drove down after I called her crying. They actually suggested you take a loan against your house for Marcus, she asked, incredulous. They acted like I owe them my entire life, I sobbed. Like everything I worked for should automatically belong to them. Grace, this is beyond toxic. This is financial predator behavior. But they're my family. No, Ashley said firmly. Family doesn't demand you sacrifice your security for someone else's hobby. Family celebrates your success. They don't try to take it. 3 weeks later, the court summons arrived. After receiving the court papers, I immediately hired attorney Laura Foster, a specialist in family law and financial disputes. Laura, a woman in her 40s with a reputation for handling complex family cases, reviewed the documents with a furrowed brow. Grace, this lawsuit is unusual, she said. Your parents claim implied family contract and unjust enrichment. Essentially, they're arguing that by buying a house instead of supporting Marcus, you violated a moral obligation. Can they actually win? I asked, terrified. Legally? No. Moral obligations to support adult siblings don't exist in law. But defending yourself will cost money and emotional energy. Laura advised me to gather evidence of my financial independence since 16, proof of money already given to my family, and documentation of Marcus's history with education. We need to build a case showing you don't owe them anything. In fact, they owe you, Laura explained. The research process revealed shocking truths. When I requested copies of tax returns from ages 16 to 18 when I lived at home, I discovered my parents had claimed me as a dependent those years, receiving tax benefits from income I earned. They collected dependent exemptions from my labor, I told Ashley, furious. Basically profited twice, from the money I gave them and from tax breaks. Worse, when I dug deeper into Marcus's educational history, a pattern emerged. California Institute of Arts wasn't his first expensive school. Records showed Savannah College of Art and Design, 2018. Attended one semester, dropped out after spending $25,000. Reason: professors didn't understand my vision. Art Institute of Atlanta, 2019. Lasted 6 months, cost $18,000. Left because curriculum was too restrictive. Community College Digital Media Program, 2020. 3 months, $4,000. Quit claiming it was beneath my skill level. Total educational waste. $47,000 of my parents' money and retirement savings. Marcus has a history of dropping out, I informed Laura. California Institute would be his fourth attempt. This strengthens our case significantly, Laura smiled. Pattern of educational failure versus your consistent success. But the biggest shock came when I hired private investigator Jake Morrison to research my parents' current financial situation. Jake, a retired police detective specializing in financial fraud cases, uncovered devastating information. Grace, your parents currently have $89,000 in credit card debt, Jake reported. They've refinanced their house twice to fund Marcus's career. The house, originally worth $180,000, is now mortgaged for $220,000. They're underwater on their mortgage? I was shocked. Worse, they applied for a second mortgage last month, denied due to debt-to-income ratio. That's when the lawsuit against you was filed. The pieces fell into place. The lawsuit wasn't about family obligation. It was about desperate people trying to access my assets to cover their financial mistakes. Jake continued. Marcus currently has $15,000 in personal debt. Credit cards, car loan for a BMW he can't afford. Your parents co-signed most of it. BMW, I repeated. 2022 BMW 3 Series. Monthly payments $650. Bought to maintain image for his art career. I felt sick. While I ate ramen noodles in college, Marcus drove a luxury car funded by my parents' debt. There's more, Jake continued. Your parents took a loan from Linda's 401k, $35,000, to pay for Marcus's workshops and equipment. At Linda's age, she'll never recover that retirement money. The reality hit me. They'd liquidated their entire future to fund Marcus's fantasies. Now they needed my house to avoid bankruptcy. Ashley arrived that evening to find me surrounded by financial documents, bank statements, and legal papers. Grace, you look like you haven't slept in days. They're financially ruined, I told her. Everything they owned, sold, or borrowed against for Marcus. This lawsuit is their last desperate attempt to avoid losing everything. That makes them more dangerous, Ashley warned. Desperate people do desperate things. The next day, I received a call from an unexpected source. My parents' neighbor, Mrs. Elizabeth Harper, an elderly woman I remembered from childhood. Grace, dear, I heard about the lawsuit. I need to tell you something important. We met at a coffee shop near my office. Mrs. Harper, now 78 years old, was nervous but determined. Honey, the neighborhood has known about your parents' situation for years. They've been telling everyone Marcus is an investment. They claim when he gets famous, the family will be rich. Famous? I asked. They show off Marcus's artwork, claim galleries are interested, mention meetings with agents. But Marcus never leaves the house except to spend money. Neighbors see packages delivered daily. Art supplies, equipment, expensive clothes. Mrs. Harper leaned forward. Last month, your father asked neighbors for money, claiming temporary cash flow problem. Said Marcus has a big opportunity, just needs a bridge loan. Did anyone give them money? Some did. My friend Mrs. Chen lent $2,000. Never got paid back. The picture was becoming clearer. My parents were running a Ponzi-like scheme with Marcus as the product, promising future returns from his inevitable success, while taking money from every possible source. Grace, Mrs. Harper continued. Your parents tell everyone you're a selfish daughter who abandoned the family. But some of us remember how hard you worked, how you helped pay bills when you were still a child. We know the truth. That evening, I called Dr. Martinez, the therapist I'd seen in college, requesting an emergency session. Grace, what you're describing isn't just financial abuse, Dr. Martinez explained after hearing the update. This is systematic exploitation. Your parents groomed you from childhood to be the family ATM, while simultaneously training Marcus to expect support without contribution. Why me? Why not make Marcus contribute? Because they needed someone reliable, responsible. Marcus was the golden child, untouchable. You were the scapegoat. Your existential purpose was to serve others' needs. Can I recover from this emotionally? Healing is possible, but first you need to establish absolute boundaries. Legal victory is important, but emotional boundaries are crucial for long-term recovery. A week before the court date, I received another shock. A call from Marcus himself. Grace, can we talk? His voice was different, less arrogant, more scared. What do you want, Marcus? I didn't know about the lawsuit until after they filed it. Mom and Dad told me you'd agreed to help with school. He was lying. I knew he was present when they asked me. Marcus, what do you really want? Long pause. California Institute rejected me. My application was not as strong as Mom and Dad thought. They want me to reapply next year with a better portfolio. So the lawsuit was for a school that had already rejected him. Are you going to tell Mom and Dad? I asked. I can't. They'll freak out. They've already borrowed money from everyone. That's not my problem, Marcus. Grace, please, can't you just help this one time? I promise I'll pay you back. With what? You've never held a job. I'll figure it out. The same words he always used. I'll figure it out. No plan, no accountability. Just expectation that others would solve his problems. Marcus, I need to ask you something. Do you actually want to be an artist? Or do you just like being treated like an artist? Silence. Long silence. I don't know anymore. For the first time ever, Marcus sounded lost instead of entitled. But it was too late. Too much damage had been done. Too much money wasted. Too many years of enabling. I'm sorry, Marcus, but I can't save you from consequences anymore. The court date was tomorrow. The courtroom was packed with at least 20 people. Friends, family members, neighbors. I recognized Mrs. Harper, Mrs. Dorothy, now using a walker, Mr. George from the bakery, and Ashley, of course. My parents brought their own supporters, mainly relatives I barely knew. Judge Patricia Williams entered, a stern woman in her 50s with a reputation for a no-nonsense approach to family disputes. This case is unusual in my 15 years on the bench, she began. Parents suing an adult child for house money to pay for another adult child's education. Let's proceed. My parents' lawyer, a thin, nervous man named Richard Stone, presented their case first. His arguments were bizarre and desperate. Your Honor, defendant Grace Thompson has a moral obligation to support family, specifically her brother's educational pursuits. The defendant selfishly used resources that should benefit the entire family. Stone claimed I'd unjustly enriched myself at the family's expense, and that my house purchase constituted theft of family resources. Judge Williams looked skeptical. Counselor, please explain the legal basis for forcing an adult child to fund a sibling's education. Stone fumbled through arguments about implied contracts and family duty. His presentation was weak and unconvincing. Laura's turn, she methodically presented our evidence. Financial independence documentation. Tax returns showing I'd been financially independent since 16. Actually claimed as a dependent by my parents for tax benefits they didn't deserve. Educational contrast. My academic success and self-funding versus Marcus's pattern of dropping out from expensive programs. Financial contributions. Bank records showing over $25,000 sent to family over the years, with no legal obligation to do so. Parents' financial irresponsibility. Credit card debt, multiple mortgages, depletion of retirement funds for Marcus's failed ventures. Your Honor, Laura concluded. This lawsuit represents a desperate attempt by financially irresponsible parents to access their daughter's assets to cover their poor decisions. Judge Williams reviewed the evidence carefully. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, did you contribute financially to Grace's education? My parents exchanged uncomfortable looks. We couldn't afford to at the time, Dad admitted. Yet you expect her to afford her brother's fourth attempt at education? Marcus has special talent, Mom began. Stop, Judge Williams interrupted. This court is not here to evaluate artistic talent. This court evaluates legal obligations. The judge turned to Marcus, sitting slouched in the back row. Mr. Marcus Thompson approached the bench. Marcus reluctantly walked forward, clearly uncomfortable. Young man, you are 26 years old. What is your employment history? I'm pursuing an artistic career, Your Honor. That's not what I asked. Have you held steady employment? Art is my employment. Have you earned consistent income from art? Long pause. Not yet, but what have you earned total from artistic endeavors? Marcus shifted nervously. Maybe 200? From selling a few pieces online. Murmurs from the audience. My parents looked embarrassed. $200 over how many years? The judge pressed. Maybe 3 years? So you've averaged $67 per year from your career, while your parents spent nearly $50,000 on your education? Art takes time to develop a market, Marcus mumbled. Judge Williams turned back to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, explain to the court why your daughter should fund your son's education when your son has no track record of educational completion or financial contribution. Grace makes good money, Dad protested weakly. Family should help family. Did you help Grace when she needed education funding? That was different. How was it different? The judge pressed. No answer. Judge Williams called a surprise witness, Mrs. Harper, who testified about my parents soliciting loans from neighbors under false pretenses about Marcus's guaranteed success. They told the entire neighborhood Marcus was an investment, Mrs. Harper stated clearly. Said when he got famous, everyone would benefit. Meanwhile, Grace worked like an adult from childhood. Mrs. Dorothy, despite her advanced age, insisted on testifying. Grace worked harder than my adult employees when she was 16, she told the court. Never asked for special treatment, never complained. Her parents took advantage of that work ethic. The most damaging testimony came from an unexpected source. Marcus's high school art teacher, Ms. Jennifer Clark, subpoenaed by Laura. Marcus was a decent student with moderate talent, Ms. Clark testified. But his parents had unrealistic expectations. They believed Marcus was a prodigy when he was simply average. I tried to counsel them about realistic career expectations, but they refused to listen. In your professional opinion, did Marcus show exceptional artistic talent? No, Your Honor. Marcus showed interest in art, but his talent level was comparable to thousands of other students. Nothing suggested a professional artistic career would be successful. My parents' entire narrative crumbled. No special talent, no guaranteed success, no basis for demanding others fund their delusions. Judge Williams called a final recess. During the break, I overheard a conversation between my parents and their lawyer. Why didn't you tell me about your financial situation? Stone hissed angrily. Credit card debt, failed mortgages, retirement fund depletion. This makes you look financially irresponsible. You said the family obligation angle would work, Dad argued. Not when the daughter has a spotless financial record and the son has a history of failure. After the recess, Judge Williams delivered her verdict. Having reviewed all evidence, this court finds the plaintiff's claim completely without merit. No legal basis exists for compelling an adult child to fund a sibling's education, regardless of moral beliefs about family obligation, she continued. Furthermore, this court is troubled by the pattern of financial exploitation involving the defendant. Evidence shows the defendant contributed substantially to family finances from a minor age, received no educational support herself, yet achieved independence and success through personal effort. The judge turned a stern gaze toward my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, your financial problems result from poor decision-making, not your daughter's selfishness. Expecting your daughter to mortgage her future for your son's fourth educational attempt is particularly unreasonable given your son's history of non-completion. Case dismissed with prejudice. Additionally, this court orders the plaintiffs to pay the defendant's legal fees, finding this lawsuit frivolous and potentially vexatious. The courtroom erupted. My parents' supporters looked shocked. My friends were quietly cheering. My parents sat frozen, their faces pale with disbelief. As the court cleared, Marcus approached hesitantly. Grace, I'm sorry. I didn't want this. You could have stopped it, I replied quietly. I know, I was more scared of disappointing them than doing the right thing. Marcus, you need to get a job and grow up. Mom and Dad can't fund your experiments forever. He nodded sadly. I know, maybe I'll move out, find work, try to be an adult for once. My parents left without speaking to me. Outside the courthouse, Ashley hugged me tightly. It's over, she whispered. You won. But the victory felt hollow. The legal battle was won, but my family was destroyed. Was this really winning? Months after the court case, life slowly returned to a normal rhythm. My parents' legal fees, $15,000, were paid through a payment plan since they couldn't afford a lump sum. My house was officially, legally, completely mine. Therapy with Dr. Martinez continued weekly. Grace, healing from family trauma takes time. Don't expect immediate peace with your decision. I feel guilty about destroying my family, I admitted. You didn't destroy anything. You revealed existing dysfunction. Your family was already broken. The lawsuit just made it visible. Laura Foster, my attorney, became an unexpected mentor. During our final legal consultation, she shared a personal story. I went through a similar situation with my family, demanding money for my brother's gambling debts. Sometimes cutting toxic family ties is the only path to a healthy life. But they're still my parents. Being a parent is more than biology. Real parents support their children's growth. They don't exploit them. 3 months after the court case, I received a surprising phone call from Marcus. "Grace, it's Marcus. Can we talk?" "What about?" "I got a job at a local art supply store. It's not much, but it's a start." I met him at a neutral coffee shop. Marcus looked different, cleaner, more mature, tired but not lazy. "I moved out of mom and dad's house," he began, "staying with a friend until I can save for an apartment, working 40 hours a week. How do you feel about that?" Honestly, scared, but also relieved. I didn't realize how much pressure I was under to be special. He paused. "Grace, I want to apologize. Not just for the lawsuit, but for everything. Years of taking advantage of your work, never appreciating the sacrifices you made." "Marcus." "No, let me finish. I spent so long believing I was talented and deserving that I never learned to work for anything. Mom and Dad enabled it, but I chose to accept it. What changed? Honestly, working retail, seeing how hard other people work for little money, realizing I'd never done that, and seeing how much debt Mom and Dad accumulated for my dreams that weren't even really mine anymore." "Are you still interested in art?" "As a hobby, yes, but not as a career. I'm thinking about a business management program, something practical. Maybe eventually manage an art supply store or start a small business." For the first time ever, Marcus sounded like a realistic adult with an actual plan. "Mom and Dad hate me now," he continued. "They say I'm giving up and wasting my talent. But honestly, I think they're more disappointed about losing the lawsuit than about my career change." "How are they financially?" "Bad. They might lose the house. Dad talked about bankruptcy. They're angry at you, angry at me, angry at everyone except themselves." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. You were right to set boundaries. I wish I'd learned that skill earlier." We parted ways amicably, not as close siblings, but not as enemies either. The relationship with Marcus might be salvageable eventually, but my parents? That bridge might be permanently burned. 6 months later, I started dating again. I met David at a work conference, a financial planner from Detroit with similar values about money management and independence. It was my first relationship where I didn't have to justify saving money or setting boundaries. "Your discipline is impressive," David said after learning about my house purchase story. "Most people our age are still living paycheck to paycheck." I learned early that financial independence equals personal freedom. Ashley visited frequently, bringing news and updates. "Your story inspired me to set better boundaries with my family too," she admitted. "Not as extreme as your situation, but still helpful." 1 year after the court case, I received an unexpected letter from my parents. Not an apology exactly, but an acknowledgement. "Grace, we are facing bankruptcy and may lose our house. We still believe families should support each other, but we understand the court disagreed with us. We hope someday you will forgive us and we can rebuild our relationship. No admission of wrongdoing, no recognition of the harm they'd caused. Just continued belief that they were right and hope I'd eventually come around." I didn't respond. 2 years later, I bought an investment property, a duplex I rent out for passive income. I built a business plan for a financial consulting service, targeting young adults from difficult family backgrounds. My experience with financial independence despite family obstacles became an asset, not a liability. I started a blog, Financial Freedom After Family Trauma. The response was overwhelming, hundreds of messages from people with similar stories. A community formed around shared experiences of parentification, financial abuse, and recovery. Dr. Martinez was proud of my progress. "You've transformed trauma into purpose. That's advanced healing." Today, I'm writing from my home office in the house that represents 12 years of sacrifice, discipline, and self-determination. I'm no longer bitter about the childhood I lost or the family relationships that failed. Instead, I'm focused on the life I built and the people who chose to be part of it. True family isn't determined by blood or obligation. It's determined by mutual respect, support, and love without conditions. To anyone listening who recognizes their story in mine, you deserve better. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. And building your own chosen family isn't giving up on blood family. It's choosing health over harm. Your worth isn't determined by what you can provide others. Your dreams matter just as much as anyone else's. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is saying no. Drop a comment below if this story resonated with you. Hit that like button if you believe in the importance of financial boundaries. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming family trauma and building an independent life. Remember, the family you choose can be stronger than the family you're born into. Thank you for listening to my journey. Keep fighting for your freedom. And hey, if you're currently eating ramen noodles while working multiple jobs to pay for college, hang in there. I see you, I've been you. And I promise, it gets better when you refuse to let anyone else define your worth. Until next time, this is Grace, reminding you that sometimes the best investment you can make is in yourself.